Hello and welcome to Mama Says. I'm your host Amber Autry and we are at episode 15, baby. We doing it. This week I am so excited to introduce you to Kaylee Harmon. Not only is she an amazing mom to her daughter Juniper, but she is a boss, big time. We talk about Kaylee's experience working in the real estate industry and moving to a full-time comedy producer. Originally not what she wanted to do. It's a great story. You're going to love it. We also talk about how Kaylee was adopted when she was 1 week old and how she came to meet her birth mom and all of the siblings she had no idea she had. Kaylee also opens up about becoming a single mother and her experience with postpartum depression. It is an awesome episode, and I know you're going to love Kaylee and want to follow her immediately. So get cozy and enjoy this episode of Mama Says. Hello!
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. You look amazing.
I'm freshly showered. It does wonders for a person. Thank you.
You got good lighting. You rich.
Oh yeah. This Amazon setup, so good.
So thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you being here. Okay, let's just start with how I met you.
Okay.
So I did not know you were a mom. I met you as like a boss ass hilarious producer.
Thank you.
And so like how many kids do you have?
Just one.
Just one. Okay.
Yeah.
How old are they?
She is 7, but she lets everyone know she's almost 8 in July.
And what's her name?
Juniper.
Juniper, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay, so first tell everybody like what you do for work, because I want to know, like, I want them to know how amazing you are. First off.
Oh no, this is awful.
No, what?
No, it's good. I just, you know.
It's weird.
Yeah, it's weird. No, I was in real estate for a really long time, and I left commercial real estate in 2009. My boss, my employer, suggested, he's like, you don't need to be in this industry, you need to be doing something in comedy. Like, so I was like let go, but it was in a way of like, get out of here, this is not where you belong.
What? That's
and I was like really resentful and really bitter about it for a long time, but I think what's crazy is he was right, and I hate that he was right. But yeah, no, so I started producing shows a couple years ago. I like teamed up with another comic here to just like figure it out, because I loved comedy so much. I just loved it. But I knew I could never get on stage or have any attention, or that part of it is not for me. But I kind of realized I could be behind the scenes and still be part of the world. So yeah, I produced a bunch of shows, and now I'm in the process of opening my own space.
Oh, so you're based out of Nashville.
Yes.
Are you going to open it there?
Yes.
Like your own club?
Yeah.
Oh, you are the coolest.
We'll see. Fingers crossed. I leave for New York this week to go meet with a bunch of the owners of the clubs up there and just try to like learn and get insight and figure it out. But that's the plan, is to make like a small mid-tier club that's, I don't know, inclusive and non-tolerant of really gross boys.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes, dude. This is like, I'm so grateful for you, and the world is about to be a much better place. I told Alex, my boyfriend, the other day, he was like, sometimes you talk like other men aren't that great. And I'm like,
other men aren't that great.
I'm like, yeah, sorry to break it to you. Your gender is not doing great.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly great men, but there's also some really gross ones. So I don't know. There's been things in this scene in the last 6 months that have been like, just really eye-opening. And I'm like, I want a space that's inclusive, not just for like a safe space for women. I mean, that's a really big priority, but also just inclusive from like a queer standpoint or people of color standpoint, just like, I don't know, just an alternative to what currently exists here.
Yeah. So going back to your boss, like, it's just
Yeah.
wild to me that he would. I don't think anybody ever is like, you should do like leave your stable job and do comedy.
Yeah, he's um we had this really really weird relationship. We were really close. I like very much like looked up to him. I thought he was a friend, he was a buddy. Um he was married and had like multiple children, and he was just like a boss when it comes to real estate. Like he was very like so like financially driven and professionally driven. And I came from a real estate background when I started with him, so it was just like it was what I did. I didn't think about my own interests for a long time, but over the course of time working there, all I talked about were shows. And I started going to so many shows and I started talking about comics. And then he started being like, he's like, you should do an open mic. You should do an open mic. And I started writing and stuff, but I was just like, no, like that's not my lane. And I think he also picked up on me just like sort of checking out. Like I knew how to do my job. It wasn't interesting anymore. And I just probably was just kind of like half in, and he was just like, you need to go.
Wow.
And at first it was like so shocking. Like, you don't get to decide what I'm going to do. And like, you're not the boss of me, like in that way. Like, of course, like, and I was like pissed and I was like so mad for a long time. But, over the years, he keeps checking in and like, you doing it yet? You doing it yet? Because I spent a good like year and a half just like applying for more real estate jobs. And then I got another real estate job and I hated it. I hated it so much. And I was like, okay, I just got to do this thing. I just got to do it. I got to lean into comedy. And I was like, I know I'll never be a comic. That's not what I am, but I've got to create this world for other people. So I like jumped in. Like my second real estate, or my other more recent real estate job, I just left like a month and a half ago at my 60-day review. I was like, I'm out. I'm sorry, I can't stay.
You're like totally producing now. Like, what made you resistant? I mean, obviously there's like, no.
Yeah, I mean, well, I couldn't wrap my head around it financially. That was certainly so. I had a really stable job and I was making really decent money, and I had pretty recently become a single mom. And so I was like the only income. So I was like, I can't like be on my own. Like I have to have a job. I have to have a 9-to-5. My whole life I've had like a 9-to-5. Like you don't just like quit your job and be unstable. That's crazy. I have to raise a kid. So that's why like I spent so much time like trying to get another job, and like I was doing freelance stuff, and I was working for some like other startups and doing like consulting and getting them off the ground and stuff like that. And I was just like, I don't know. I just like my heart wasn't in it. And for the first time I could think about like what I actually wanted. Because I had spent, like with my I was married, and with my ex-husband, a lot of time was spent like being his caretaker in different ways. And so it was like I finally got to think about myself. And here we are.
And it feels good.
Yeah, I mean, it's terrifying. And, every 3 days I like text my friends or whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this. I'm going to die. I quit comedy. I hate comedy. And they're like, shut up.
What is that?
And then you have like a really great show, or you have a really great one, and you're like, oh my God, comedy's so cool.
Dude, it is so good to hear you say that, because I feel like not a lot of people talk about that. It's just posted about like, oh, I'm on the grind, I love it. And then
yeah, no, there are days where it's like, this is awful. And it's not awful, but it just didn't go right. Or it just like, for me on this side of it, on the producer side, I stress about like ticket sales, and I stress about like, I want to be like, it's really important to me to be able to pay comics. So I stress about like, I want to make enough money to be paying you guys. And like some shows, free and clear, I make money, they make money, it's awesome. And then some shows I'm like definitely paying out of pocket, because I'm like, I'm not just gonna leave you hanging because tickets sucked. So I stress about that. And then I'm trying to still like navigate marketing shows and how to get people in the building. And, you know, right now my shows are, I've got one at a cidery, I've got one at a brewery, I do one at a park. Like, so they're like different venues. And I'm like, I just want something stable. Like brewery shows and all those shows are great. And I love like, especially my newest brewery show. They're not open on Tuesdays and it's a Tuesday night show. So it's just extra business for them. They opened in the pandemic. That's when they're building. They got hit by the tornado right before the pandemic, right before they were going to open. They were shut down most of the pandemic, rebuilding. Finally got to reopen, but it was pandemic time. So it was like for them, they're essentially a brand new brewery trying to get new business and new people. And so like I like that angle of it too, just like bringing in people to local businesses and that kind of thing. So I want to like I'm trying to navigate like once I get this going, like do I want to keep those going? Do I want to hand those over to like a younger comic who maybe like wants to run their own shows if I get my own space going? So we'll see. But
Where did you learn all that you know so far about producing?
oh my God, just like figure it out. Like, I mean, I was going to so many shows and I was spending so much money at, you know, Zanies. And then I kind of like got looped into like the local stuff. And then I started following some of them. And I was a lurker for a really long time. Like these people didn't know I existed. And I've seen them, I feel like probably since 2015, 2016 is when I started going to like local stuff. So I've been watching a lot of these people for years and they don't even know I was around then because I was like the silent one in the corner, just like trying to figure things out. And just watching, I mean, the first few shows, like I said, I teamed up with another comic here and he like showed me the ropes and stuff. Cause what I had insight into getting into spaces. Because I came from a commercial real estate background, I knew the owners of all the properties. I knew the owners of all the bars. Like I had a good grasp on venues but didn't know anything about actually running a show. And so it was just sort of like hands-on learning really. And I'm still like learning things like always and how to make it better and how to incorporate, I don't know, backgrounds behind the stages and music and all the things that like go into like building, like not just like here's a microphone, do your thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. So it's all a learning curve, but
what's your favorite part of producing?
When I love when the audience gets super into it. Like I love a good reaction. That, you know, like I love a bomb too because I love to cringe, like because I know like I love it. But a really great show where the audience feedback is just they're so excited and they're like, oh my God, this was great. Or like I love to stand, you know, at an angle so I can like get reaction shots of the crowds and like the laughing. And it's like, look at all this joy, like look at all of it because it's, I don't know. I feel like comedy saved me in a lot of ways when I like my life was like falling apart. And then that's when I was like leaned really hard into going to shows. And I was like, it saved me in a different way. I know comics are like, oh, it saved me. And I'm like, me too, but in a different way. Like it was like an escape from reality. So I like seeing all that joy on folks' faces.
Yeah. It's Dewey Comedy Productions.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
So I grew up in Dewey, Arizona.
Oh, and you loved it that much?
No, not really. I'll never go back. But like, I mean, I don't know. I love the way I grew up for sure. I love being from Arizona. I don't think I could ever go back. But yeah, like I'm a desert kid. So I don't know. And I didn't want to like put my name on it. That felt so like narcissistic. And I didn't want like, I asked Juniper, I was like, do you want your name? She was like, no. Cause I like think about things like for the club name too. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I won't call it Dewey. This is just like whatever, but it's just a silly, like nod to the hometown.
That's really dope. With the club, do you have like you're like, oh, I want it by next year? Or are you just kind of feeling it?
I mean, I would like to get it going as far as like securing space and stuff in the next couple of months. And then it'll take time. It'll depend. Like, that's why I'm meeting with all these folks. Cause I just don't know if I want a like full service restaurant, bar, food and bed, like that kind of club, or if I want to keep it really low key and just have like a cool room. Like I'm trying to like navigate that. And also like navigate it financially and figure out like what makes the most sense, because, you know, tickets obviously are going to go to talent. So then I would need food and bev to pay staff. So it's just like all that. So I don't know, like by the end of the year would be rad. Next year would be fine. But like, I also like when I get back, if I'm like, I have like half a business plan written, and I've got some really good people in my life who are like constantly like sending me lists of questions and things to think about. And did you think about this? You gotta make room for this and that and this and that. So I don't know, 6 months from now would be like awesome, but we'll see.
That's so dope, Kaylee. I'm so happy for you.
Thanks.
Just,
I'm happy you're coming here.
oh my gosh, I'm so pumped. I'm so pumped. Yeah, I'm litty. I'm clitty litty about it.
Yeah. It's gonna be good.
Awesome comedy, or it has
What?
Nashville.
Yeah.
Comedy.
I mean, people are showing up like crazy, and it's gotten really good. Like really in the last month, you've seen it kind of take off. Like a bunch of new mics have started finally, and some rooms are opening back up, and now there's like multiple shows on the same night. So now you've got that like conflict, like all that stuff where it's like good conflict. It's going to press, you know, it's going to push people. And I think really drive home some of the people that were sort of like half in. And it was hard during the pandemic. Like, you know, we would do those virtual mics sometimes, and there were mics here, but it was sort of like one spot, and it's kind of like not a real audience. It's just a bunch of other comics. And now they're opening, and I don't know. And then you've got like bigger talent here, obviously moving here, and in the Josh Wolfs and Theo Vons and Angela Johnson, all those folks. And there's more coming. I had a girl on my show, the last Park show, named Lydia, who just moved here from LA. She's originally from the Bay Area. She was running like an all-female show in Oakland. Her whole thing is like mentoring young female comics. So like, I'm stoked she's here. Like, so it's good. It's good.
That's awesome. Does Juniper go to the comedy shows ever?
Yeah.
How does she feel about that?
I mean, she's sort of indifferent now. Like she loves it. Like I think she loves to hang out. She's like, you know, she's not really paying attention to too much of the material, but we have had to have the conversation after one show. We were driving home. She's like, Mom, what's cocaine? And I was like, all right. Let's get into it. So she's certainly getting exposure that's not in a traditional childhood sort of setting. Certainly wasn't my childhood setting.
Yeah.
But she thinks it's cool. Like I think she likes to get on the mic. She is opposite of me. Like she wants the applause and the attention. And I mean, I'm just waiting for the day that she gets on there and like reveals all of our family drama.
Oh my gosh. So like, did you tell me a little bit about like how Juniper came about? Did you always want to be a mom? What was that?
Not like I was, I guess sort of indifferent on being a mom. I wasn't like one of those people like, oh, it's like my calling. I want to be a mom so bad. But it was also like, meh, if it happens, it happens. But her coming about was sort of wild. Just in that, when I was 25, I was diagnosed with cancer, and I did 8 months of chemo and started, my body like hit early onset menopause symptoms. So I was like, well, I'm done. I shut down, my body shut down. And the doctors were like, you know, the odds of you getting pregnant are basically zero. You know, so let's see, like a month and a half after my last dose of chemo, I was still like fully bald and like just coming out of it. I was pregnant.
What?
And I was like pissed, to be honest. I was like it just felt like another like medical issue I had to deal with.
Yeah.
Because it was like super unplanned. I mean, I was married. I had no reason like not to like have a baby or whatever. So it was like one of those things, because I like contemplated, I was like, man, like this is like, I don't think I'm ready. And I was only I was still 25. Yeah, I was still 25. So I was like, I felt young. Like my friends were in like two categories. Either they like got married and knocked up at 18 after high school, or they're all just now starting to have kids in their 30s. And I was in that weird middle ground where I was like, I'm not too young, but I'm not ready. And like, I have a life I still wanted to live. So yeah, when I realized I was pregnant, I was like, oh my God. And then it was considered high risk pregnancy because my doctor's like, we don't know. Like, we didn't expect this. We don't know what your body's going to react to. But she was perfect. I mean, she came out fully healthy and she's great. She's super smart, which is super frustrating. And yeah, like it was a weird time. So I was like never drawn to it, but it was also like one of those, I also knew like if I decide I want kids, this is probably the only shot I'm going to get.
Wow.
Because my husband and I were like, we were both adopted as well. And so we were sort of always in the camp of like, well, if you don't get pregnant after chemo, like we could just adopt someday. That's sort of what I assumed would happen. And then we had her and I was like, well, we don't have to adopt now because I don't ever want to do this twice.
How was the actual birth? Like that went pretty chill?
Yeah, like it was honestly pretty low key. She was small. She was I think 6 pounds 9 ounces. So she wasn't a very big baby. And it was sort of like I opted for the epidural and it wore off literally as it was about to be time. And I actually am grateful for that because I got to like get through the entire labor process pretty chill, but then experience the actual moment and like feel all that part. So that was cool. Like, I don't know. And I had like pain. I became like really on like my pain tolerance is like probably really skewed because I had just come from like having needles and surgeries and ports and all these things in my body. So I was like, this is such a temporary pain and there's a baby at the end.
Wow, Kaylee, you are such a freaking boss, dude.
No. I don't know about that. But yeah, like it was cool. Mm-hmm.
What's it like being, you said you recently became a single mom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my husband and I separated in 2018. He's still very much around. He's in the kitchen right now.
Oh.
So he's very much in her life. But yeah, he was gone for a couple of years. And it was, I don't know how to explain it because I had sort of been living kind of like a single mom already. And it just like he was physically not around anymore.
What do you mean by that?
So he left the state. So he went to rehab.
Oh, okay.
And so he was gone and he was like he had relapsed when she was like 4 and so he sort of like became an absent father at that point, just mentally I think, and then physically he was gone for a few years. And so it was weird navigating it. It was definitely hard. I mean, I so much respect to single moms, but you kind of just fall into a pattern. Like she was in school and I was at work and we had our routine and it was exhausting, like having no days off, literally like 0 days. Yeah. It's all you all the time. There's no like running to the store for a 15-minute break or breather. Like it's just you all the time. But like what's the alternative? Be a shitty mom. Like like you just do it. And like I feel like that's parenting in general. Like I felt so ill-equipped to be a mom. Like I just was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then it just happens and you just are.
That's wild to me. That's wild.
Yeah. And like if you ever experience it, you'll see like you feel so clueless, yet you're doing the things. And you're like hoping you're not screwing them up. Like I think I'm being decent, and you learn from your own childhood and like what you do and don't want to repeat from that. And I don't know, there's like certainly approaches to parenting that I'm taking that were not my parents' approach, but then also some of it is. So it's just you pick and choose what like makes the most sense for you. And here we are.
In what ways do you think your mom influenced the way that you parent Juniper?
My mom was like my adoptive mom, my mom. My dad was a pastor when I was born. So she was the very typical like stay-at-home wife, stay-at-home mother. and all she wanted was to be a mom. Like that was what she wanted. And she had a lot of fertility issues and was never able to. So I was adopted at birth, I was a week old, and her entire identity was wrapped up in motherhood. And so, I think the things that I see myself pulling from that she did do is just like on an involvement level. I mean, she never missed a single sporting event, school play, performance, dance, like anything I did, she was at and she was filming it. Like everything I have, the footage of my childhood sports ambitions is probably 1,000 hours. Like, I don't know. There's so much content. But like, so she was just like so involved. She was the playground volunteer mom. She was the field trip mom. She was the class mom who did all the Valentine's Day parties. And like, she was the most involved, and, could be because she didn't work, but also like, when Juniper was still in school on campus and stuff, it was like, I was going to the field trips. I was showing up for the awards ceremonies. I was like, that part was like really like resonated and stuck with me. And I always felt bad as a kid for the kids whose moms weren't there, couldn't be there, whatever. And I didn't all, when I was a kid, I didn't understand like, oh, their moms have jobs and they're like feeding their families right now. That's why they're not at this citizenship awards show. Like that's why they didn't show up to the geography bee for you. Like, because they have things, but as long as I'm able and when I'm able, like those are the things I definitely like I see pulling from my mom. And then, there's things that like my parents did that I just don't do.
Right.
And that's more of like they were so conservative and so Christian and so church-based that, certain topics were off the table. We couldn't talk about our bodies or sex or any of that kind of stuff. And from the very beginning with Juniper, I've been very open about like, this is a vagina, this is a penis, this is like, these are your body parts. You need to know them by name. If anyone were to touch you, I don't want you telling the teacher that someone touched your cookie. That doesn't make any sense. Like, call it what it is. This is your vagina. And, like just being more conscientious of that stuff, or like, just a like far more open, honest dialogue. The comedy shows, she's hearing things and she'll have questions, and I'd rather her like be informed to like the capacity that's appropriate, as opposed to like raising her totally in the dark. Because when I moved out of my house, I was kicked out. I was like thrust into the world of like, oh my God, I don't know anything about anything. Wow. Nothing.
You were kicked out?
Yeah, because I was having premarital sex with the person I went on to marry.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was 19. I was in my freshman year of college. Oh. Anyway.
How did they find out?
So, well, oh my God. I told them I was going to a church retreat with one of my best friends, and I came back with a piercing in my lip. And they were like, we know you didn't go to the church retreat. Yeah. And I was like, nah, I didn't.
I didn't.
So they were like, you either come back to church or you leave. And I was gone in 2 days. I was like, bye.
Wow.
I don't need to be here.
Is y'all's relationship better now?
Yeah, it ebbs and flows. My mom's always been, she's neutral, right? She has to like appease my dad, but she's not trying to like, I don't know. She's always remained pretty neutral. And I think she's probably the one that got hurt the most in all of it, because like basically my dad is the reason I wasn't around. Mm-hmm. And like, I know for her that was hard because she wouldn't have wanted it that way or didn't want it that way. And we're good now. Like we've never been like super close, like best friend kind of mom-daughter relationship. Like, we stay pretty neutral. We talk about things that are pretty surfacey. And that's just my comfort level with it. And that's how it's always been. Even as a kid, it wasn't like we were we were never like the kids having heart to hearts on the bed, like
Yeah.
it was always sort of like at an arm's length, because it was never like, I never like didn't think I was loved. I was definitely I always felt like loved and cared for. It was just, I always felt that my takes on the world were different than theirs. So I like just learned to keep it to myself really young. And, if you just don't create any conflict, there can't be any conflict, right?
Were you an only child?
No, I was an only child till I was 10, and then they adopted my brother, and he was almost 4 when they adopted him. So it was sort of like this weird, we're only 6 years apart, but I had 10 years of being an only child. So I feel very much like an only child, because by the time he came around, I was sort of pretty like independent, as far as like, I was very involved in sports and school activities and sort of did my own life. And then like I moved out, he was 12. So like I never really knew him as like an adult or like as a cool person. He was just like the twerpy little guy that they adopted. So yeah, I don't know.
Being like you were adopted at a week old, so that's like, you're still a baby, but
yeah.
Was it an open adoption, or what is it like?
So it was it was like a closed private adoption. And it like, that was a weird thing too. Like cause I always knew I was adopted. That was never something they kept for me. And I honestly, like when I think back, I was like, that's how they got out of having the sex talk with me. Cause I didn't, where do babies come from? It's like, well, from someone else. Like, I think that's what they used to avoid having that conversation. But, no, like, it was closed and I had really limited information. I think my parents had more information than I realized, and that's only recently come out. But I never had like a driving curiosity to know like what the circumstances were or like what happened. And at one point my dad, I think he had like told me that she was just a young mom and like couldn't care for me and da, da, da. And it was like the story I was told was like, it was the classic like teen mom just unable to take care of you, da da da, and which I bought and believed for a really long time. And then in 2000, I want to say it was like 2007, it was like after I'd moved out, I was like living in California, and I feel like it was like adoption.com or some like random adoption site where you like just go put in like your information, the birth information, and then other people put in like, children, like adopted children can put their stuff in, but also like adoptive parents can put like, I had a baby in this time and this day, whatever, and like see if there's any matches. And I did it like randomly one night, mostly so I wasn't like trying to like find someone to meet them or anything like that, but I just sort of wanted to like lurk and be like, I wonder if I could find out their identity. Cause this is like early-ish internet days, right? Like it's still MySpace. I don't think Facebook existed yet, So it's like, It was like not like, it wasn't so easy to like find people on social media and that kind of thing. And I like put my information in, totally forgot about it. And then like 6 months later, this like girl reached out to me and she's like, I think I'm your sister. And I was like, okay. And then, but she was older than me, like significantly older than me. And I was like, and I was really dismissive about it. I was like, no, like my parents told me that it was a teen mom. So like, I don't think so. But it was weird. I was born in a small ass town. I can't imagine that many babies were born and given up for adoption that day. Like, I'm pretty sure I was probably the only one. But I had her email for a long time and I was just like, I don't think so, that, our stories don't line up. And then like over the years, like I had her email, whatever. And then I think eventually like when Facebook happened and stuff, she added me and I was like, yeah, sure. Why not? Like, you seem harmless. And, but then over the years, I would like, every once in a while, I'd like go check in on her page and just lurk and like look at her mom and be like, could this be my mom? Wow. And what's so stupid is I look exactly like her.
You look like the sister?
No, like the mom. I look nothing like my sister, nothing. And that's why I was always like, meh. we have different body types. She's like super thin, like super tall. And but her mom was like, there's probably something there. But it was, again, like I didn't have this, like, I never felt like I think adopted kids all go through different feelings, but I never felt like rejected or like had those like, why didn't my mom want me? Like, why wasn't I good enough? Like, I never experienced that. I know a lot of adopted children do, but I never did, because I had a good life. I grew up like middle class on acreage with horses and four-wheelers. Like I wanted for nothing as a kid, right? So it was like I never felt like I had missed out on something. And then over the pandemic last year, I did like a 23andMe thing. And I was like, we'll see. And my nephew, so my sister who had reached out to me, he came back as a match. And I was like, there it is.
No way.
He was on there. And I was like, well, that confirms it. Like, and I feel like her name is Sarah. I feel like Sarah knew the entire time and was just like waiting for me to get like wrap my head around it. So I like reached out and I was like, so did 23andMe. You were right. We're sisters. And it turns out I am one of 5.
What?
And I was the only one that was given up for adoption. I'm right in the middle.
Weird.
It's crazy. And, you know, and I honestly, I was like, because I still don't know the circumstances. I haven't had that conversation with my biological mom. And she's not offered it. So I feel like it's probably a pretty sensitive thing because I have nothing but respect for her. Cause she basically had, I think Sarah was, like 14 or 15 when I was born. So she had basically been a single mom raising this teenager, got pregnant, and she's from Michigan. She went to Arizona to have me and like keep it under the radar. My understanding is no one knows I exist. And so something happened. And then she had another daughter like a year after me named Kayla. And Kayla's still in Arizona. And then she had 2 more kids like much later who are in their early 20s. So yeah, I'm one of 5, which is super weird.
Wow.
And then you know, they're in Michigan. They're all in Michigan now. And I have friends up there. So this summer, like during the pandemic, when I was like, okay, like what can we do that's like safe? And it was like, well, just go stay with friends for a few weeks in another place. Like that was like, that's all we could do. And I knew they were up there. And I was like, hey, like I'm going to be around just if you want to like meet up or whatever. And to this point, my biological mom didn't know that Sarah and I had been in contact for all these years. She didn't know we were talking. And like Sarah and I had like a couple phone conversations. And the first time we talked for like 2 hours. It was like, do you have moles? I have so many moles. Like, like weird stuff like that. But so her and my youngest sister, Hannah, like drove over to they're like, we'll go talk to her. We're going to go talk to her. Just let her know you exist.
What?
Yeah. So they like went and had a conversation. They're like, you know, basically Sarah was like, so this girl has reached out to us and she is our sister. And, you know, they had that conversation, which I'm sure was like highly shocking and highly emotional. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
But then over time, she was like, yeah, I'll meet her. And we ended up like meeting in a park. And I think we sat there for like 6 hours. So it was my mom, Sarah, and Hannah. They like, we were the ones that were there. And the other 2, well, Kayla's in Arizona and I have a brother, but he wasn't there. And it was really weird and sort of it sort of gave a lot of explanation to a lot of like why I'm so different from the parents who raised me, just in like their sensibilities. They're super chill. They all showed up in tie-dye. They're like super like low key, like hippie vibes. They love music festivals. And like, you know, one of the things I thought was kind of cool, like as we started talking and I was explaining like, trying to explain doing comedy, but that like people don't understand like what that means. Like, what does it mean to produce comedy show? Like, what does that entail? And you know, I was like, you know, I'm just the chick at the back of the room running things, but I don't, you know, I'm not. And she used to do the exact, she's so into music, my mom, and she's like, oh, I used to do that. I used to run sound and audio and lights for bands, da, 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 da. Like, so she was like, in the same way, she's like, all of my friends were musicians and on the stage, and that just wasn't for me. But
Dude.
I was like, oh, yeah, that makes total sense.
Wow. That
Mm-hmm.
is insane.
Yeah.
So many questions. So like what I going in, were you nervous? I guess you were probably nervous.
Yeah, like I don't know, I felt okay about it. I knew Sarah is this personality that's completely opposite from us. She is loud and joyful and like just a big personality. And she had like put me at ease so much because she was already like, you're my sister, da da da, mom this, sister. She already like just I was just included. Like I would like, and so I felt like, you know, what's the worst that can happen? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like I wasn't going in looking for answers. I didn't have a list of questions like what happened and why and who is my father and like all that kind of stuff. Like I was like, that's not mine to know. Like I don't need to know that. Like that's for them to share, her to share. And
That's so mature, dude. That's like
well, like I said, like I didn't like have a shitty childhood, right? Like I didn't grow up wanting for anything. So it wasn't like I felt like they owed me anything or whatever. Like I always went in thinking like what you did had to have been like the hardest thing ever. And like all you can do is respect that. Like that's all, like that's the only option is to respect it. So
wow.
I don't know. I like, yeah, so I didn't want for anything. And so I was nervous. I was sitting there for a while, just like checking my phone and like,
Ooh, yes.
but then like once everyone was around, it was cool. And like, they got up at one point, and this is so like, again, like I came from like dad was a pastor, like super religious, conservative upbringing. And at one point, my mom like got up from the picnic table. She's like, "Do you want to smoke?" And she like went and like smoked a joint. And I was like, "This is not like how I'm." I was like, "This is a totally different world," but I loved it. I was like, "This makes all the sense."
That
This
is
is
so cool.
mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
you weren't like feeling like a piece of you was missing, but when you saw this, were you like, did you feel like, oh man, I just discovered a new little part of myself? Or were you just like,
Yeah, I think it just gave a lot of explanation to the pieces that like, you know, because from a very young age, I just didn't resonate with like what my parents were saying or whatever. Like I just wasn't connecting to it.
yeah.
And it like it kind of gave explanation of like, oh, like it's just in me to think differently than them. And like that's not a bad thing or wrong. Like, you know, they have their belief systems in place and that's what works for them and stuff. It was just never something I connected to. And this just sort of like was like, oh, like this is who I am at a different level, like in your core, like, you know, nature versus nurture, like this is just in me and no amount of teaching will take this out of me.
That's so cool. Do you still have a relationship with them? Pretty close, your siblings?
Yeah, so I talked to Sarah, like we're both horrible at like texting, like we'll text for like 30 minutes and then not again for a month. Like, you know, like it's like in spurts and stuff and everyone has their own lives. And um my biological mom is so funny because like she's friends with me on Facebook now and she's a huge like Facebooker. Like
Oh boy.
she's one of the people like reposting things and posting content all the time and stuff, which is like really sweet because like my parents aren't on Facebook. So I've never had to deal with like, oh no, what's my mom posting? Like, you know, but it's fun because like it's like at a distance. So I get to like kind of watch the things she shares and stuff, but like she's like so supportive in a funny way of like the comedy stuff. Like she'll like repost my shows. I'm like, I mean, I don't know if anyone in Michigan cares, but thank you so much. Like it's a funny way of it's like her way of like showing support and stuff. And like you know, we've not talked on the phone or anything since then. I think her and I both are like similar in that way where we're like neither one of us is gonna like make that move to like engage really. Like we're both sort of like Sarah will do all of the coordinating. Like she'll do all the coordinating. But yeah, she texted me on Mother's Day, because this Mother's Day was the first time. This was the first Mother's Day since I've known her. You know, she's known about me and whatever. And I, like, leading up to it, I was like, I feel like I should say something now, because now, you know, now I know her. And she beat me to it. And she, like, just texted me like a really sweet, like, happy Mother's Day, you know, really sweet little text. And she had my phone number for a really long time, and I had hers, and neither one of us had made a move. Oh. But and again, that was sweet. I responded. I was like, you know, happy Mother's Day as well. Da, da, da. And that was it. That was the end of the conversation. So it's like this slow, it's a slow moving thing, but I am glad to have done it now, because at least I'm glad I've gotten to meet her, like, right. Even if the engagement or the relationship doesn't really build much beyond this, I think I'll be happier knowing, especially as I get older, like, that I had a chance to meet her. And it's not one of those, like, I waited too long and now she's passed away, or now I'll never know, or now so I'm glad that I did do it, because having a biological kid was also surreal, because for both my husband and I, that was the first time either of us had, like, a blood relative, really, because he's also adopted. And so like she is our, like, flesh and blood. And she was the first person that people be like, oh, she has your nose, or she looks like him, or she, you know, those kind of, like, things. Because as a kid, people be like, oh my God, you look just like your dad. And I would be like, I'm adopted. Like, I don't. You're just saying that to be nice. So, like, but to have, like, that was probably part of the thing that, like, spurred my interest too a little bit more in knowing more about my biological family. Was just like, as she was, like, aging, you know, at this age she looked like him, and at this age she looked like me, and it was like seeing that, like, physical embodiment was, like, pretty surreal.
Has your biological mom met Juniper?
No. So I opted not to bring her, because I just didn't know what I was walking into exactly, right? And I didn't know if it was going to be, like, super emotionally charged, or, you know, I just didn't know them. And I feel like I needed to know them physically and feel it out before I introduced her. I've talked to her about it. She knows. She's, you know, she's trying to wrap her little brain around it too and understand, because that's a lot to, like, be like, so we have grandma, and then I have a mom, and then I, like, you know, to explain that situation to her. But yeah, I would love to bring her up there now, you know. And my biological mom was very much like, bring her up, she can pick berries. Like, she lives, like, out in the sticks in Michigan, and, like, harvests, you know, gardens, and has wild berries and all that kind. And I was like, yeah, I'd like, you know, so maybe that's something we can plan, like, this summer or something. Like, I'm happy for her to know her, because she's the only other grandkid besides my nephew.
Really?
Yeah. So I think my biological mom would like to have her around, or just to have, like, some knowing of her, you know, because my nephew is in college, so he's much older.
Wow.
And then the other siblings haven't had children yet, you know, and maybe they will, maybe they won't, but it hasn't happened yet. So she's, like, the only one. She's the only one, period. Like, on my ex-husband's side, none of them have children yet.
Wow.
And my brother had a daughter. Like, that's the whole thing. You're like, but yeah, so she's sort of the only grandkid for all of their families. And so
Juniper is, like, loved.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Do you think that you would ever want to adopt?
Yeah, you know, I was definitely open to it before having my own. And I think now I'm just at a place in my life where it's like, I don't have a longing for another kid. You know, like, I think one and done was, like, a really good move for me. Like, because I felt like mothering, you know, everyone has different experiences, but, you know, people talk about, like, when I gave birth, like, there was just, like, overwhelming love that I had never felt before, and it's unexplainable and all this stuff. And I was like, I never felt that in like a way that feels really like messed up of like, I'm supposed to feel more and I'm not feeling it. And I think postpartum was really hard on me, and I didn't realize
Mm.
I didn't know that that was probably what was happening, but I felt like very detached. Like I loved her and I needed to care for her, but I had like this really like walled off feeling. And so motherhood in general has just felt sort of like I have to work towards loving in the way that society like views living. I don't know. Not to say like I don't love her. Like obviously she's
Oh, no.
like my entire life, but like I never felt that same love. And I was like, I don't know if that's because I'm adopted or because of my dynamic with my mom or what that is, but like to have another kid now, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But I am 100% pro adoption for people that are considering it or having like fertility issues or whatever. It can be a really wonderful thing if your intentions are right. And it can also be incredibly hard because like my brother, when my parents adopted him, he was older. He was coming out of the foster care system. He had like years of like abuse and things that they just weren't privy to. And so then it became issues later on, and it was learning disabilities and behavioral issues, and and he's still struggling. He's pushing 30 and just really struggling. And it was just he got dealt a shitty hand as a baby and as a toddler, and it's carried with him for his entire life. And so I think my parents probably weren't fully prepared for what that was going to be like
Mm-hmm.
and the extent of it. And they definitely did their best, and they did the best based on what they knew to do. But I think he probably needed a lot more intervention a lot sooner. And so that's hard. And that's part of adoption or fostering that is scary. And kids can be problematic, and kids can have all of these things that you have to really be prepared for. I really admire people that adopt like teens
Yeah.
because they've just been pushed through the foster system for 10 years, and they're basically rejects, and then they age out of the foster care system, and then they're just expected to go be adults, and it's so horrible. And I think maybe once Juniper's older, that would be something I could wrap my head around or be open to, but I also wanted her to be able to be old enough to advocate for herself.
Mm.
And you're bringing another kid in, and sometimes they've got traumas and sexual traumas and different things, and I definitely would want her to be old enough to speak up if something were happening, or to just protect her from some of those issues that can happen. And that's not to say like all kids are like that, but it's so uncertain.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm really content with my one kid and the countdown until she's out of the house.
I
Like, I love you, but I can't wait for you to like leave.
Fly, little bird, fly.
Go be awesome. Because that's the thing. Like, I think she'll be a great adult, but I have a feeling the next, 8 years of preteen and teens are gonna be rough.
Dude, I'm sure in the moment you figure it out, but I just can't
Yeah.
imagine like someone I've raised talking back to me.
Oh, I mean, that starts happening really young.
You're like, oh, that's already going on.
Like, her personality is like way too mature sometimes. I'm like, Jesus Christ. But I think it'll make her like an incredibly strong adult female. Like, I'm very excited for however that lands. But like, she's very argumentative. I'm very like, I don't want to fight with anybody. Everyone else can win. Like, please, like, you're right. Everyone else is right. I swear. And so everything to her is like a battle. And it's just like, why do you enjoy this so much? Like, let's just get along.
Yeah. How do you navigate that? Like,
I mean, it's tough, like boundaries and rules and repercussions, and like parenting is so different now than when I was a kid. Like I grew up with like, we didn't have a TV because that's where sin happens, and we didn't like, so the things I take away now are like, you take away their devices, their Nintendo or their TV, or restrict her from like playing with her friends across the street or whatever, but like it's hard, and like I don't think I'm killing it.
I think.
Because she gets away with a lot. Because I mean, her dad is the same way. Like, we're both really, really passive people, and so it's like, all right, okay, sure, do your thing. I think it'll come back to haunt us, but and she's also a really good kid. Like, she's not doing anything outlandish. She's not like destructive or hyper. She's great in public. That was something that was always weird when she was a baby, baby or young. She was so much easier to deal with out in public. I think because she was like so stimulated and so into like being out in the world. But like if it was just me at home with her, like she would drive me crazy. And I'd be like, I would like throw her in the car and like just go. Like, let's go anywhere, adventure anywhere. When she was really young, we were still living up in the mountains in Colorado. And so it was like we would find random rivers or trails or go to the coffee shop. Like, she was so good out in the world. Was never the kid having tantrums or meltdowns or anything like that. She was great. And it was at home when she would like let her true self be known.
Like, I need to be doing something.
Yeah. So she's an active kid. I don't know. It's great. She just started ice skating, and we've put her in a few sports and they've never taken. And this one, she's like so into it, and she's so bad at it. But like she loves it, and she like comes off the ice with enthusiasm. And I'm like, okay, all right. I think we like maybe found your thing.
Maybe so better.
Oh no, she'll definitely get better. She's only taken a couple lessons. Like she'll definitely get better. But initially we started because she said she wanted to play hockey, and I was like, hell yeah. And then she got there and saw the figure skating girls, and she's like, I think I want to do that. And I was like, all right, well, all right, fine.
Oh, okay.
If that's your thing. But like that's definitely something that my parents were always really good about, was like curating your interests. And like I got to try and play every sport I wanted to. And as I got older, a lot of the time it was like, I will play all the sports so that I don't have to go home.
Yeah.
I'll be out of the house as much as I can so I don't have to like walk on eggshells around you guys.
Yes.
But they always were like really supportive of activities. So I'm hoping she gets into it, because I like love that stuff. I love like watching other moms at the rink, and you're just like, oh my god.
Are they like stage moms?
Yeah. You have like the stage moms or like the helicopter moms who like literally like circle the rink, like making sure their kid doesn't fall from the outside. Just let them fall. Come on. Like,
no telling like what their childhood was like and what's going on.
Yeah. So it's like super. I love watching all that go down too, because you're like, well, I wonder what their take on me is right now.
Just sitting,
just chilling in the bleachers, letting her do her thing.
That's amazing.
And she's old enough now too, like when she was little, like she did basketball and soccer, and she'd like come running off the court or the field and whine about whatever. Now, like I like waved at her from the bleachers, and she like waved me off. She was like embarrassed. I was like, all right, that's what I like to see. Like in some independence. You don't need me.
Oh yeah. You were like, hell yeah. That's nice.
Oh yeah. I loved that she was like, Mom, stop. Like, don't do that. Because it like showed that she was, she was good on her own. And that's what I want for her.
You are such a freaking boss. Jennifer's lucky.
Well, we'll see. She's already in therapy.
Oh, is she? That's cool.
I mean, yeah, she is.
Well, does she talk about that? How it feels?
No, she won't tell us anything. It's like her secret time. Which is
good.
It's good. She has her boundaries. Yeah, I think just there's been a lot has happened with her dad and that dynamic, and it's a lot to work through for a kid. And we had to start having conversations with her, in my opinion, like much younger than I would have liked, just like about what addiction is and about that, what that does to a person's psyche and how that kind of dictates some of her dad's behaviors and choices. And so, it's a really mature conversation to have with her, but like she gets it. And like my biggest fear is like she becomes codependent because I was codependent as hell with him.
Mm.
And so I want her to like learn early on, like, this isn't your responsibility. It's not your job to fix this. It's, he's going to do what he's going to do. And, all you can be is his daughter. And you don't need to like check his behavior, or you don't need to like, cause she was starting to be like a little like, Dad, what are you doing? Like she was making it her job to make sure he was okay. And I was just like, you're like way too young for this. So, in therapy, her therapist doesn't share everything with us either. Like she does respect that privacy, but she's like, mostly she says she's fine. And she's like, she'll get to it. But like therapy when you're 7 is different. It's like coloring pictures about your feelings, or like, what color does this make you feel? Or, like, I don't know, that kind of stuff. But I think it's been good for her to know, like she comes in here, she's doing it on Zoom right now because of everything. So she hasn't done in-person stuff yet, but she'll come in here and shut the door and we set her up and she'll run out and let me know when she's done.
That's so cool, Kaylee. That's like a step. I mean, everybody I think needs therapy. So that's like
Agree.
a step above what a good action to take as a mom. Seriously, observant and proactive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm trying.
That's all you can do. We're just
truly. Yeah.
I appreciate you giving me your time. I just have a few more questions. I really
let's do it.
bring up. You mentioned postpartum.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I don't hear people talk about that a lot. And like I hear moms talk about this love that is just like overwhelming. I hear that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, can you talk about like, were you diagnosed and like was it right when she was born? You felt this weird feeling like?
Yeah, no, like there was never like an official diagnosis, but it was sort of, I think because of like essentially, I mean, I don't know if it's fair to call like having cancer a trauma, but I was like, my body was coming out of this physical trauma and mentally, and I was still processing all of that, and then I became pregnant. And so I don't think I ever got to just like appreciate being pregnant, or like get that like mommy glow and that like all of those like serotonin hits that like they say it gives you. I had an easy pregnancy. I had morning sickness like 3 times. I had, like being pregnant wasn't hard on me. I think I just mentally hadn't kicked in that like, oh, now you're going to be a mom.
Right.
And so I think when she was born, because society and like there's a lot of like emphasis on just like how life-changing it is and how amazing it feels and all these wonderful things about it, I was like waiting for that to happen, and it was just like super numb. I was just so numb. And so I was like, okay, well, either I don't love my baby or I'm broken in some way. And
that's so hard.
It was like so weird, like, because you feel like you're supposed to feel a certain thing and you're not feeling it, and then you're like, there must be something wrong with me. But I talked to like my OB about it, like, because they would like do like, they did mental health check-ins at every OB appointment, and then again for the first year after when you're doing your follow-ups and stuff. And I was always sort of like vague. I wasn't super honest on those. I was just like, yeah, I'm fine, everything's fine, I'm supposed to be fine, everything's good. And I think the reality was I was just like, I wasn't not fine. I was just really neutral. I just felt really like even level, like no highs or lows. I just felt nothing. And numbing is sort of my coping mechanism anyway, of just like checking out. But yeah, I think I didn't come out of that till she was probably like 3.
Wow.
Like I was just in it, and I was like playing the role I assumed I was supposed to play, like doing the things, taking the pictures, planning the birthdays. Like I was just doing and not really taking it all in. And I think it wasn't until I was older when I realized like, oh, you've checked out completely. And I was checking out of a lot of things. I was checking out of the marriage. I was just like there but not there in a
Wow.
lot of ways in my life. And I think it was once I got into therapy for completely other reasons that I realized like, oh, like this is also ties into like why I feel this weird disconnect as a mom. Like I feel like I'm this provider and I like feed you and bathe you and put you in cute clothes and then tell everyone how cute you are. But I'm not actually like experiencing you the way that would be a healthy way to do so. So, like, that's definitely changed with therapy of like, oh shit, like I wasn't okay this entire time. And I maybe should have like thought about that earlier, but I just assumed I was just broken.
Wow. So how did you, what's the words? How did you find your way out of that?
I mean, I think just therapy, honestly, and like talking through it and realizing like what I was doing and then just having to be intentionally like present with her.
Mm,
And I still like sometimes it's still hard. Like I find that like if I don't like the TV show or movie or whatever she put on and that's what we're doing in the moment, like I'm just like not there.
yeah.
I'm not paying attention. I'm not checked in. And then she'll be like, Mom, remember on this show when this happened? And I'll be like, oh, I wasn't I wasn't engaged with you at that point. So like
Mm,
I think still too for us, like our best quality time and our best time spent together is out. If that's going to the parks, if that's going on a hike, like I love a weekend road trip overnight to somewhere. Like I like it we have to I don't know what it is, but like removing myself from the house is like really where I can just like focus and be engaged with her.
yeah.
And it just has to be really intentional. And I try to be better about it at the house now too. Like, you know, put down my phone. It's so easy to check out when you have a phone and like, and comedy stuff and everything. Like half of what you do is like promoting on your phone,
Right.
and it feels stupid to be like, hold on, baby, I got, I'm working right now, and she's like, you're on your phone, and I'm like, I know, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a weird thing. So, I wouldn't say I've like totally got it under control, but as far as like the numbing or the feeling, like I can check in with my feelings now better
Okay. Yeah.
regarding it. And so, I mean, again, just a lot of therapy.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
In the end, it's like, confessing all your shit to some random older middle-aged woman. And she's like, all right, well, here's the deal.
Yeah. It's so interesting because that checking out and being present is something that's good for all, like for other adults to adults interaction. And I bet there's so much more pressure when it's your own kid. You're like, I have to be this like,
Well, yeah, because then you feel like you don't know her. Like, she's to an age now where she's like getting all these interests and she's picking up on everything and she's like more looped in on pop culture and like actors and and so it's like if I don't stop and start paying attention, like I'm not gonna know her.
yeah.
Like, and that was something I felt like with like my mom, she was always there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I never felt like truly known like my interests or what I actually liked or I never felt comfortable talking to her about like a boy I'd have a crush on or anything like that. So I never felt like she knew me. And I still feel like she knows about comedy on a really surface level. If she knew the stuff I was doing, she would probably have a panic attack. Like like she, it's at this arm's length and I don't want that with Juniper at all. So I have to be like really like engaged and like, okay, show me what you like, show me this thing, show me this game, show me like because if I don't do that, it's so easy for me to be like, she's self-sufficient. She doesn't need me.
Right.
And I know that's not actually true. So
I'm just curious,
yeah.
like you mentioned the TV show thing. How do you
Mhm.
balance, like, I guess I'm trying to think of my relationships with other adults, like, you know, what if you just don't want to watch the TV show?
I mean, that's the story of my life. So like sometimes it's like I'll hang out with her physically and like not really engage. Her dad is way better. Like they are TV buddies because he's still into it. And what I do love, and I do have to appreciate about him, is like he has started introducing her to all the old movies that we loved, right? Like she is obsessed right now with Jim Carrey and Ben Stiller, and like she loves Zoolander, and she loves, like, she just like she is so into like those old school comedies. She's obsessed with Robin Williams. She's obsessed with like all of these like cool things. And that's purely because like he's just like taking her down this path of like Ace Ventura. I've never heard her laugh harder. Like,
yes, okay, she's my best friend now.
she's so cool. And like, and then, you know, this is probably problematic, but like their favorite show, and this has been for years, they started watching Always Sunny in Philadelphia together. Yes. And like there are definitely episodes that are off the like she is not allowed to watch, for sure. He polices that pretty good. But she will sit down at, like, she'll go to shows with me, right? And she'll sit down at a table with all the dude comics and have an episode season by season breakdown of like what the gang did in this place and the gang in that place.
Wow.
And like her and Evan Burke literally talked for 30 minutes about, remember the one time Frank did this, and remember the time Dee did that, and like, and she like knows it. She'll be like, oh yeah, that's season 7 episode 14. Like, and I'm like, what?
Wow.
So, you know, that all that credit goes to him. And I don't know, it might be totally ruining her, but
no, you've got a comedian on your hands, maybe.
Well, which could totally ruin her. But like,
yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so she definitely has like a little bit of like maturity beyond her peers in some of that way. And I'm hoping that's for the best. I, being an only child in different ways, was also like really mature, really young, because it was like me and my parent, like, you know, my parents and I, and then because they adopted me a little bit later in life, their friends either had much older children or, again, no children. And so like I didn't have a lot of like kids my age around. Right. And so it would be like me and my parents at dinner with, you know, 4 of their couple friends or whatever. And so it was just like constantly having those like adult conversations happening around you. And so people always thought I was much older than I was, because I was like comfortable around adults so early. And she's the same way. Like she'll walk into a show now and like plop down and just be like, what's up, guys?
That's so cool. That's so cool.
So yeah, but I do love that she's loving those movies. And sometimes when they're on, I'll for sure come out and like, it's fun to watch her now laugh at the things that like we were laughing at as kids, or we were, you know, we thought were so funny. But yeah, sometimes when it's like Disney Channel shit, I just I don't know. Yeah.
So now that this is recorded and Juniper will see this one day, I'm gonna find it. What would you like her to know forever?
Oh man, I don't know. Just that like I am like so endlessly proud of her. Like she's handled all of this stuff with her dad so well, considering like there was some horrible things happening around her that, you know, we protected her from as best we could, but she's just like got such a great attitude about it, and I'm like just endlessly proud of her. And I know that whatever she kind of ends up doing, it'll be rad. She'll be leaps and bounds ahead of other kids, I think, just because she's had to grow up kind of fast, and she's, you know, had exposure to some things. And I don't know. She's the best. She's the best whoopsie daisy that's ever happened. And I'm glad that I stuck it out and didn't panic when I got pregnant. And I don't know. She's the shit.
That's what's up. And finally, what is your Mama Says advice?
I mean, just meet your kids where they're at and let them carve out their identities. I don't know. I felt like for so long as a kid, my identity was, it was assumed because I was a female, I would, have to get married and have babies and stay in the church. And that was my that was my future. And I like was never given that space to like figure out what I wanted for myself. So just let your kids, let them do their thing. Let them figure it out. Let them fail. Let them fall. Let them, cut their knees open. Like, just they got to learn. They got to figure it out. And whatever they end up choosing, if it's what they really want, it's going to be the best thing for everybody.
Yes. Yes. You are the absolute shit. I'm just so glad to know you, Kaylee, and thank you.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to tearing it up together in Nashville.
Yeah, it's gonna be so fun. I can't wait for you to be here.
It really is. I'm so grateful to you, and have fun in New York.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thank you.
Oh yeah. All right. I'll talk to you soon, Kaylee.
Alrighty. Bye.
Bye.